The Sister Speaks. The ball of knitting fell with a sudden flump from Hilda's lap, and her head gave an upward jerk. She looked round at the other two with an apologetic smile, for it was evident she had been dozing.
"It's so dark," she explained in self-defense. "And both of you there, as quiet as mice. That's enough to make anybody sleepy." "We'll have the lamp directly, dear," replied her sister Joan from the gloom. "Don't try to knit, you'll strain your eyes."
Silence for a minute, and then the third woman spoke. It was the strained composure of her voice, the horrible, casual brightness of her manner, that hurt Joan again as it had been hurting her all day. All Allie said was,
"Hilda, child, I meant to give you this long ago. It's a photo of Arnold. I don't think you've got one. Not like this. He's in flannels. It must have been taken at Winterley."
Hilda found herself mumbling things, conscious all the while of Joan's anxious eyes and ears devouring her. A second later, Allie had come over and was kissing her. Her kisses seemed to burn like fire. Hilda wanted to tell her not to do it. She would have to scream out to them directly that she couldn't stand it. She couldn't stand it. She found herself speaking to Allie in that queer, dangerous tone that sometimes came upon her unawares, so that she herself was surprised and almost frightened.
"I have one already just like this, Allie, only it's signed. He gave it to me himself. I remember his writing on it."
Allie began to say something in reply, but stopped, with Joan's eyes upon her. She retired to the sofa, and Hilda was left with the photo in her hand. Allie remarked presently that it was too dark to see it properly, but there was no hurry. It'd do later when the lamp came in. Blind man's holiday. It was so evident that she had been going to say something else, that her remarks about the light were a tactful substitution. Hilda hated her for her tact and self-possession. That woman. Arnold's widow. There was a brief pause, and then they all three began to talk together, hurriedly, chaotically, catching desperately at the various straws of topics. It was as if they had realized of a sudden that with the imminent coming of the lamp, this dreaded day would be nearly over, the seventh horrible day they had spent thus together, the anniversary of Arnold's death. The first reference to him of whom they had been thinking all that time had been made at last. The terrible strain was over. Deliverance was at hand. Even while she was talking, Hilda was running over all that had happened since 8 o'clock, when first she woke and faced the day. How Allie had eaten all her breakfast to please Joan, though you could see her choking over it. How Allie let you see each separate pain as it came along and wrung her. How Allie's loss had been stressed and underlined at every point by that terrible calm bravery of hers. How, in a word, Allie had piled fortitude upon resigned widowhood and tact upon self-effacement, until, towards the evening, things had well-nigh reached the shrieking point. In the midst of these thoughts, Hilda realized that silence had set in again. They had all ceased to talk. She looked at the ball of knitting where it lay under the table, barely distinguishable from the pattern of the carpet. For a moment, ridiculously, it filled her consciousness, and she made a half motion to pick it up. Then, in the midst of her movement, with her back bent and her hand stretched out, she stopped. The great resolve had come to her again. This time she would be worthy of it. She found herself thinking, how futile to bother about a ball of wool, when at last I'm going to tell them. When I'm going to tell Allie. She straightened herself and looked at them. The two figures were strangely still. Hilda turned slightly in her chair so as to face Allie, and began to speak.
"Listen, you two,"
she said in a voice to which she herself was able to attend with a queer detachment.
"I've got something to tell you, something I want to say before the lamp comes in."
She stopped there, and shook her head impatiently as though she had confessed a weakness, of which her critical, listening self had disapproved.
"Not that the old lamp would make any difference," she assured them. "I should go on just the same. I should go on because I can't bear it any more. Do you see, Joan and Allie? I just can't bear it any more."
It was too dark to see anything but the vague outline of Allie's face. Yet Hilda could imagine how it must be looking. Presently that face was going to writhe.
"I'm going to begin at the beginning, and Joey mustn't mind if it seems like giving her away. Anyhow, I can't help it. I can't keep it up, you know, not any longer. Allie, can you remember when Joey came to you after Arnold died? About a month after, it was. You'd never met any of his people before, and by that time Joey and I were the only ones left. Father died in September, and Don 2 years before that. They hated you, Allie, though they'd never seen you. Anyhow, Joey came to help you look through Arnold's things. I wouldn't have done it, you know, but Joey did. She thought there was no sense in going on being enemies. The figure of the widow on the sofa remained very rigid. Joan, near the window, with the twilight just sketching out her face against the darkness of the heavy curtains, scarcely seemed to breathe. Their portentous silence was rather disconcerting, Hilda thought, but a second later their stark intentness flattered her. At last she was doing what she had so often dreamed of doing. The situation was hers. Her slow voice dropping its deadly syllables one by one into the well of stillness with that queer effect of detachment and aloofness was the only thing that mattered. She found herself nodding at them, almost brightly, and continued with a certain grim playfulness, conversationally. Joey was looking over Arnold's things when she found a book. You know, Allie, the little blue-bound book I gave him? You were there when she found it, and you wanted to know all about it, and about me, because you hadn't seen it before. I'd written his name in it, and mine too, with the date. But that was quite all right when Joey told you I was his little sister. Quite all right. He found a note a little while afterwards in the same drawer, but there was nothing in it that a little sister mightn't write. I'd been Arnold's little sister for so long, Allie, years and years before you knew him. And all that time, Allie, while you were reading the note and looking at the book, Joey here was scared to death for me. And Arnold. Do you hear? It's coming now, Allie. I can't see your face, but I know you're listening, aren't you? Listening hard. I think you must have suspected now and then for a very long time. I wonder, is that why you come to us each year like this, when you can see? Surely you can see we hate it. And now you're going to know. It was funny for Joey to be so scared like that if everything had been really quite all right, wasn't it? After you were out of the room, Joey found other letters. Not letters a little sister would write to Arnold, however long she had known him. But you never saw them, and Joey burnt them. She was awfully frightened, you see. She hadn't known before that I'd been writing to Arnold after he married you. She'd never dreamed. I was such a quiet little thing. Hilda was pausing now to laugh softly. She marveled at the steady ease with which her tongue could stab and stab. Never had she done anything so supremely well as this. She continued, the corners of her small mouth tilted slightly to the faintest of faint smiles. Her hands crossed negligently over the knitting on her lap, only her eyes eager and devouring. Of course, you see what I mean, don't you? I was never Arnold's sister at all. That was just a name. We were brought up together, that was all. No one outside ourselves ever knew I wasn't really his sister, or that I'd been engaged to him for 2 years before he ever met you. For 2 years. You'd like to hear about those 2 years, Allie, wouldn't you? Say you would. There's such lots to tell. Or you'd rather just imagine it. Joey, can you see Allie's face? I can't properly. Fancy my having 2 whole years of Arnold to hurt Allie with, and more. Isn't it rare? She talked on without waiting for reply from the 2 stony figures that listened. Somehow her utterance fled out before her as an independent thing to which she with them attended rapt and wondering. Presently her words began to race. She was reaching now those intimate things which even to herself she had hardly clothed in words. The fine pain of what she said was clutching at her voice and burning in her eyes. Did Allie remember how he looked in that moonlight? Her dear boy with his eyes all shadowy and the wind blowing in his hair. Little Hilda had had him like that often and often. Oh, so many times. I met him, Allie, just a few weeks before the end. He never cared for you, and he loved me, but that was all. I want you to understand that there was no wrong done but what you forced upon his heart in marrying him. You knew, you must have known, it was just infatuation and was bound to pass. And so on,
seemingly for ages, whilst still the lamp tarried and the two listeners sat rigid in the darkness. After a time, the voice of Hilda began to weary, and the Hilda also, who had been drinking in its cadences with such passionate approval, felt the first oncomings of misgiving. She still had much to tell these two. There was her deadly grievance against Allie for her annual visit on the anniversary. She wanted also to recount that scene by Arnold's graveside. The first time she had met Allie, that was. Allie had stolen upon her putting lilies, or was it chrysanthemums, on the grave, and had asked her who she was. Now Hilda wanted to make plain to Allie how near she had been to telling her the truth. More and more she was wavering in the telling of her tale. A wind was rising outside, and its sighing in the bushes by the window began to vex the background of her consciousness. It was quite dark now, too, and still Joan and Allie had made no sound or movement. Suddenly their silence and their starkness frightened her. One would surely have expected them to speak. She groped forward, and with her body bent downwards, stopped to wonder why she groped. Oh, yes, her knitting. It had tumbled off her lap, and she'd better pick it up. Maud, coming in with the lamp, might tread on it. Noises were arising, and she was annoyed with herself for being unable to distinguish them from the sighing of the wind. Listen, someone was saying, would be better on the brain just about this time. Now, that wasn't the wind. Why, surely it was Joan speaking. Their figures grew upon her out of the gloom, lost their sinister rigidity by degrees, became human, were moving. The wind outside was rattling the panes. Suddenly the door opened and a bright light shone upon her. Maud was entering with the lamp.
"Delighted at last," said Allie, "to wake up Hilda. What a nap she's had."
After the maid had gone, the three gentlewomen looked together at the photo of Arnold, which Allie had given Hilda.